doing the YouTube thing.
You're all good to go.
Thank you, Jesse. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Housing, Health, and Human Services Committee meeting. Our meetings are held the third Thursday of each month. We're still meeting remotely because of the governor's order. This is being live streamed on YouTube. It'll be accessible after. The agenda and the materials for tonight's meeting are public and can be viewed on the CB4 website. If you're not signed up for the e-blast, for the CB4 e-blast, I encourage you to sign up because the agenda and link to the documents go out before the meetings. The most important three things to know about the meeting is tonight we don't have a very big agenda, very long agenda, thankfully, but after each presentation, first the committee is going to ask questions and make comments. Then members of the public or attendees can get an opportunity to speak. Second, in order to speak, you have to raise your hand. And if you're calling in, I did see someone was calling in, you have to press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. And after the attendees, the discussion goes back to the committee for the business section, and some items, committee members will vote, excuse me, to write a resolution, which then goes before the next full board meeting for a vote. And I was just going to mention on tonight's agenda, the first item, which is the mandatory inclusionary housing application, that's going to be postponed until September. Next, and Joe, do you want to keep it as the affordable housing plan second, as the first item, and then the draft letter to HPD regarding staffing issues?
Yeah.
Okay, and then is old and new business. Do you want to do introductions?
Yes, Maria, could I also ask you to move your microphone closer? Having a hard time.
Closer?
Yeah, that's better.
As close as it can go.
Okay, you're speaking up. I can hear you better.
I apologize, everyone. After I said all that, I am not repeating it. I apologize, though. So I'm Maria Ortiz. Joe, you can introduce yourself.
I'm Joe Rescheduled, co-chair of the Housing, Health, and Human Services Committee. We're going to go do a round of introductions, but we also have some new members of the committee. So I'll also ask you when we get to you to introduce yourself, say who you are, and what your interest is in the board, because you're brand new to the committee. So I'll pass this over to Jesse next.
I rarely get to go so early in the introduction list. I wasn't prepared. Jesse Bodine, District Manager for Community Board 4. You typically would be seeing the very pleasant face of Nellie Gonzalez. She's away on vacation, so I am covering for her.
Passing to Betty.
Betty McIntosh, committee member.
Sabrina.
Sabrina Revron, committee member.
Leslie.
Leslie Williams, committee member.
Dolores.
Hello, and Maria, I heard you loud and clear, just letting you know. Dolores Rubin, also on the committee.
Jessica.
Hi, everyone. Jessica Chait, member of the committee.
Roberta.
Hi, Roberta Barnett, member of the committee.
Leslie. Leslie.
Oh, I went already.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Unless there's another one of me.
Travis.
Travis Rogers, public member of the committee.
And then our new members, two mothers, clearly. Yadira first.
Hey everyone, Yadira Jimenez. I'm new to the crew. What brought me to this committee and to CP4, I live in a community. I studied human services, and I have a huge passion for affordable housing. So that's what brought me here.
Aurora.
Yeah, definitely a mom. So my little guy is somewhere scattered off, thankfully, for a little while. So yes, but for Cruz, I'm very new, and I've been in Hell's Kitchen practically my whole life. So I'm very interested in affordable housing, and just I'm a social worker, so I'm very interested in social services.
We really welcome 2 new members of the committee, and everyone has children normally, or dogs or cats. So I ask everybody, keep your stuff on mute except when you're talking, because we know what it is to have children in a Zoom meeting. There's not even a question about that. We're going to start tonight with the affordable housing plan, and the first thing we're going to take up is
you forgot Betty.
No, I thought you forgot JD.
Sorry. Okay.
Oops.
Can I just note for everybody, it's very hot outside. I call on Leslie twice. I did call on Betty, but now we can hear from JD. Sorry, JD.
Hi, I'm Leslie Williams, a member of the committee.
So we have been, just for background for the public and for our committee members to set the stage, we have been discussing the affordable housing plan since the beginning of the year, but we have spent 3 full meetings on the updates to the affordable housing plan for 2022. Been very in-depth discussions. Tonight's discussion is not going to be about the bulk of the projects and proposals in the affordable housing plan, with one exception, that's Bayview, and we're going to go through a whole process on that discussion. It's about the text and the narrative that introduces the plan. I would ask one question to all the members. We sent 2 versions, one that with the track changes and one with that is clean. Do you prefer to work with the track changes one? So we go through it as we discuss that? Is that what do people think?
I think I prefer to go with clean, because if we have additional changes, we're not relitigating conversations that we may have had, but we are moving forward from where we are. That's just my thought. I don't know if anybody else feels the same.
The only flag would just be as long as we can identify like what is new or what is being
added. What I'll do is I can maybe toggle back and forth between them if we need to, so they're easy to read. But there are some new sections. I don't want us to spend a lot of time on the, as Laura said, relitigating things that have existed and not been changed for years at a time. All right, so we're going to start out with Bayview, and let's share the screen. Oops, I have to make some changes. 1 second. Okay. Now, I first want to note for members of the committee, let me get rid of this. Jesse, how do I get rid of the placard here? Anybody?
You can try hitting that box with all the arrows. Oops, where did that go?
Exactly. Nope. That's exactly my problem. I had everything all set up and now it closed.
Oh, because you're taking it from Dropbox. You can download it and then open it as the full document. That's going to take a moment.
I normally just take it from a server, and my server just crashed. So hold on a second. Let me go back to this, folks. Give me 1 second.
Jesse, it looks like you're talking, but you're on mute.
Joe, is the Bayview slide, it's a separate slide, or is it part of the larger?
It's a separate PowerPoint, but I'm going to download it. Not a problem.
Okay, I could do it. I just wasn't sure which.
I got it now.
Do you need? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Can everybody see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just set the stage here. So we've had some discussions about Bayview and its future use. And this is now merely one small slide in the large affordable housing plan. But because it was so complicated and different, we thought we would spend some time talking through it. And I want to allot roughly like 20 minutes on this, have a discussion. So this is the slide right here that will talk about what Bayview is. That it's this building at 550 West 20th Street. It's an old YMCA, the Siemens Y, that was then repurposed as Bayview Women's Prison. And then It is a state-owned building. It was emptied during Hurricane Sandy because it was horribly damaged on the ground floor. And then there was a series of requests for proposals put out by the Empire State Development Corporation for redevelopment. There was an award made, but none of these proposals came to fruition. So now we have a whole new idea we've talked about in committee. From the broad brush, it is a building that is approximately 101,000 square feet. And the proposal is to create a new blended building that has supportive housing, a residential psychiatric facility, specifically as we talked about, for those individuals who need more supervision and support than standard supportive housing can manage, and then a 33,000 community service center. And the reason that we have this community service center, we're going to go through this floor by floor, is because this building, being a YMCA, has in it an existing large regulation basketball gym, a pool, and all sorts of meeting rooms that you would find normally in a YMCA. Our request is that the Empire State Development Corporation, the state development arm, work with the community, social service providers, and not-for-profits to create a new housing model that serves homeless, mentally ill, requiring a greater degree of assistance, both health and mental health services. We look at this as a possible of 115 units, including the 30 psychiatric beds. But I think it's important to look at the building to understand how you get to this and how it's possible. So now we're looking direct onto the building from across the highway. 11th Avenue becomes the highway at that location on 20th Street. And then looking west on 20th Street toward Chelsea Piers here. Is everybody oriented to where we are in the building?
Yeah.
Just give me a nod if we are, okay. And then another really important view to look at is what the building looks like in total. It may look very large from the street or blocky, but it's really an L-shaped building with a building that's called the annex, and then a large courtyard in the center. But that large courtyard is built up because part of that is the gym and the pool. So that's how where this really like the facilities live in this building. The plans you're seeing are a concept plan, and we call it Bayview Concept Plan. It's put across with a watermark for discussion purposes only. We're not approving a plan tonight for this building. We're using these drawings, which we received from Empire State Development Corporation many years ago as part of the request for proposal process to determine how the building could be used for the various uses. And we're just going to go through and look at the colors. The ground floor, which it's important to remember, cannot be used for any residential use. This is in the flood zone. This building flooded with 5 feet of water through the ground floor entirely. Any redevelopment of this location will have to be resilient and compliant with New York City's flood resiliency zoning, which it encompasses a good part of West Chelsea. So the ground floor, which sits about 5 feet above the grade, is proposed to be mostly community service center, because that's what that was for years, all different kinds of different social service rooms and functional rooms, an entry lobby for the residential portion of the building, and an entry lobby for the residential psychiatric portion, and an entry lobby for the residential supportive housing facility. And we're going to go slide by slide and then come back and talk about it. The next floor, second floor, would begin the psychiatric facility beds toward the front facing the river on 11th Avenue. Continue the community facility, except for fire stairs going up to the residential for supportive housing. And then as we get to the upper floors, the building begins to split. We maintain, again, the psychiatric beds. Pay no attention to all these rooms and everything. This is merely what's there today. It's not how it will be reconfigured. The numbers and the calculations of units were done on a square footage basis, having a loss factor and then dividing by the average size for a studio in a residential building. So it has nothing to do. These were actual rooms for YMCA rooms and then actually jail cells at one point. The center of the building, these two big blocks of space here, this is the gym and this is the pool. And these are double height spaces. Double height down for the pool, double height up for the gym. Travis, following that? It's a little Okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm doing a graphic of for myself.
Yeah, it's very much like the pool goes down, the gym goes up.
Yeah.
But they are on the same floor. And then residential here in the annex. As we continue to go up now, residential psychiatric facility, supportive housing, and here you have the gym's double height here, and then support rooms around the pool that are slightly raised. That is the fourth floor. But when we go further up, the building in its entirely per floor becomes supportive housing. Again, pay no attention to how all these rooms are built. It would have to be entirely renovated, gutted, and all new layouts. And that residential supportive house continues on the 5th floor, on the 6th, and the 7th, and the 8th. The 8th is partial, and this particular annex only goes up 1 floor, and we could have an addition on there to create more square footage for affordable housing. So I want to bring us down for a moment before I go through the slides again to this one. So in essence, the lower floors of this portion of the building would be the residential psychiatric facility, the upper floors, supportive housing, this location, supportive housing, and then the community facility in the center and toward the lower floors extending right to 20th or really right to 20th. So I'd like to start out from a concept point of view and go through committee members, just ask some questions about this from concept. If you can raise your hand electronically or you can physically raise your hand. And if, Jesse, because I can't see everybody, if you can just tell me because I can't see them all at once.
Oh, Betty has her virtual hand up.
Betty?
And then JD and Leslie Williams.
Yeah.
Okay, this is, thank you for this concept plan. I think it's very creative. And I have a variety of thoughts. One is this, people should know that I and Joe and others spent a lot of time on many years, many meetings on this building. And so I know it inside and out. I think.
By the way, Betty means literally, we went inside and out of this building multiple times on tours and things.
Right. Anyway, I feel strongly that in particular, this particular concept needs to come to the Chelsea Land Use Committee because it is different than anything else that's been around. And it requires some education on terms and even a tour. I think it'd be great if at least the Chelsea Land Use Committee members could go in there physically to see it because you have to see it. And also one thing that's kind of missing from the proposal is about preserving important historical features in the building. I mean, I know this isn't maybe not for the affordable housing plan, but I think it really, you can't not mention something about the historical features. There's Siemens Chapel, there's wonderful tiles around the pool, there's on the outside, there's important features. So anyway, I'll stop there. I could talk a long time, but those are my two things that I want to say.
Let me just speak a little bit to process. The idea that we put forth is putting a concept, one simple slide in the affordable housing plan. But as a companion to this, the process would be that the board would convene community meetings to get input first from social service providers, the kind of folks who do this work, to say if we are on the right track, but also to bring in community residents during the months of September and October as a way to develop this. And I think that's the time for the Chelsea Land Use Committee to truly take it up, because we need to get community engaged with this to see if this makes sense at all, but also the kind of folks who would run this. An important point to bring to everyone's attention is that yesterday, as part of Penn Station redevelopment, it was announced that Bayview would have at least 60 units of supportive housing in it. So we need to get something out there in public as a vision, as opposed to an actual execution, because the state is very interested in working with the community on the redevelopment of this building. JD, you're next.
Yeah, I don't have to speak because Joe, you speak for me. That's what I was going to bring up. So,
huh?
He said you brought up the points he wanted.
I was going to say the same.
Yeah, we have to have a full community process on this. This is not like we're done.
I also saw that Leslie Williams put his hand up earlier. I don't know if he still wanted to speak. I can't see.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry for I'm way away from New York City. That's why it appears this way. The question I have has to do with the issue about the historical importance and the gym and the pool and those kinds of things. How will the building be separated in terms of preservation and entrances, etc., for the community use versus the other purposes? How do you envision that?
So it's very interesting. There actually are multiple banks of elevators, Leslie. And
Okay.
so there's an entire bank of elevators here in the green that would serve the psychiatric facility. And there's one elevator here for the residential. I would expect there would be additional elevators installed at this location because you have three distinct pieces. And the other good part about this building is it is extremely solidly built. This is a fireproof, reinforced concrete structure that can take reorganization without falling apart at all. So it really would be three separate uses, three separate entrances. But I do believe that it would make sense that the community service center should be used, of course, by not only the broader community, but the tenant, the psychiatric residents, and also the supportive housing residents. And that means that more space in certain floors of supportive housing can be dedicated just to actual space to live in as opposed to program space, because there is a lot. If we see this, the yellow has a lot of square footage.
Dolores has her hand up also.
Dolores, you're next then. No, first, Leslie, is that helpful?
Oh.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Dolores.
So couple things. I agree 100% with Betty. This is very creative. I personally am really excited about this possibility, but I'm concerned about putting the concept in the affordable housing plan. Because again, we haven't had that discussion. We haven't had it baked in. And I understand your point, Joe, now that it's come up with Penn Station, that we need to make sure that they understand that we're thinking about something. But the plan, if we look at our overall plan, we're actually putting out there where we have real concrete support and ideas of what type of programs could bring these types of housing or this type of whole development online. I think, in my opinion, it would make sense to indicate this is a landing site for affordable housing and or additional creative ways of thinking about solving some of our social services problems without going into the detail. My concern is because it's done like the rest of our plan, which is very factual. What's the zoning? What's the square footage? What are we getting? We're getting 115 beds. I'm concerned that we may have reactions to this that are too early, as we don't know how it's going to build out. I would love to see that the site is put into the plan. I would love to see that there is information that talks about the square footage and potential for what amount of affordable housing could be done there, and indicate opportunity for creative solutions for some of our social services problems, like lack of psychiatric beds, instead of going into this detail, which we don't know if we can actually get to that detail. That's my concern.
So we're not going to show the slides that we just saw at all.
No, I know that. We're showing this slide.
Yeah.
And my concern is this slide, because it looks like all of our other slides, speaks to this is what we can do and this is going to happen. And so that's why I'm thinking, let's not take it that far. I think there's a lot of people who probably can get real excited about getting behind this program and really putting this building to this use. But I'm just concerned about it being in the plan in the same way that we know that someone's using tax credits to get a specific number of affordable units at a specific AMI. And we know that has a pathway. We don't know this has a pathway. That's where my concern is.
So first you should know Bayview's been in the plan for a long time as a slide. So why do we do this? To preempt that problem that people might think it's a very baked proposal, right? What if we just took out the section that talks about psychiatric and just talks about and make this all supportive housing, and then note that it's for affordable and individuals with mentally ill, something like that, just very broad terms. So it's not so specific, and sort of make this a little more general in here. But I think it's important that we note, number one, that we want the community service center part of it preserved. That's an important thing for us, right? And then I think a little bit of language that Betty noted about historic building and historic preservation that must be reconciled with the housing use. Does that capture, Dolores, what you're going for?
Yeah, again, I'm just trying to have there be consistency in the plan.
Yeah.
And also consistency in our process. As we already know, the process is going to be from this point, having those community discussions, having discussions with providers to then find out, is this possible? Because this is concept. I think that, so you've articulated how we can still continue to have this as a placeholder,
right?
Recognize that there's opportunities here other than the usual.
Jessica, what are your thoughts about that idea of like
sort of
simplifying it down or something?
Thank you. I was going to say something similar to Dolores, so thank you for allowing me to speak next. I totally agree. I also think that in the plan document, there's no mention of, like, the only time psychiatric as a word or mental health, I don't think is noted at all. Psychiatric is only in reference to Bayview. So I think just inserting that word somewhere else is as a priority, like that this is a priority for this board to try to address, so that when we do get to the opportunity of hopefully exploring this more with service providers, we can say, oh, well, we're trying to address this. This is a strategy or a population we're focused on, and Bayview could help do that. But right now it feels like, why are we talking about psychiatric needs in our district? It's nowhere else in here.
Like we should do a section about the severity of homeless, mentally ill, developing a new model, like something about, we need to develop a new housing model that works with the needs of this population, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're ready to say that it's a key element of the affordable housing plan. I genuinely, I'm just not sure, but but yes, that's a place where that might go, is a short section on that.
Yeah, just like call it out with a sentence or two that gives it a flag as opposed to a major, that gives it a pin as opposed to a flag, okay?
Yeah, I think actually you could even go in the ensuring affordability at a range of incomes. There could just be a sentence or two added in that section, perhaps.
What page is that? Just so I remember.
Well, that's actually another issue. The page numbers in the report are wrong. So funny you should mention. It says it's page 2, but I think it's actually it's the first page that says key elements of the MCB4 affordable housing plan.
Key elements, got it. Okay.
And I have a few small, like mostly nits, typos.
Oh yeah.
That I'll send separately.
So I want to go around the room of the committee just to get some ideas about this, and we talked about so far. Betty has spoken. Maria.
Actually, I was interested in hearing what more people had to say. Actually, I was going to ask, I don't usually do this, but I was curious what Betty's thoughts were in regards to what Dolores shared.
No, I really, really like what Dolores said and the follow-up that Joe said, that we make it a much more general, vague kind of statement. And certainly if the state and the Penn Station plan is talking about affordable housing in this particular site, yeah, we want to kind of nail that's the direction we're looking at. So I like the way we're going, and I like what Jessica said about maybe in the introduction we make some statements about housing for mentally ill people or whatever. So I think we're going in the right direction.
Roberta, thoughts?
I appreciate the page. I also appreciate Jessica's recommendation to tie in the social service piece in the introduction. I would wonder if there's an interest in inserting a small section into the housing policy recommendations, specifically noting that like the integration or the importance of integration between housing and social services within the community. And that might be another place to highlight that. I don't know if that's completely far afield from where the committee has gone, but I think that we've seen the board support supportive facilities and noting that particular interest in working with providers could be additive and could reflect this desire without being too prescriptive around the baby site in particular.
You know, I think noting these things to sort of clarify is a good thing in the plan, you know, because we've learned more since we started with this. Next member, Sabrina, any thoughts on this?
Not really. I really think that the discussion is going on the right path. Does make sense to be more general than a specific because we don't know actually, you know. But and also the connection of what we want for as a community to have, you know, to include members of who have mental health and the social service part, I think is crucial. So yeah.
Travis.
No burning nits or questions. I do like the connection between services and housing as well. I think that needs to be tightened up a little bit, but otherwise everything looks fine.
To our new member, Sidira.
I'm definitely taking this all in, but I definitely like the idea of affordable housing and having some supportive services for the mentally ill. So that's definitely something that I'm taking in, and I really like this idea.
Aurora.
So of course, this is something that I'm going to be really interested in, right? Like community service and social services. So I love this. This sounds wonderful. But I think just as a rule of thumb, I'd love to hear what you guys think because you guys have been working on it for so long, right?
Thank you. Did I miss any member?
I think, did JD get a chance to speak?
Yeah, JD talked about, he said, yeah, he spoke. How about Jesse though, has a hand up?
Oh, Jesse does have a hand up. I apologize.
I mean, I'll defer to any other member that wanted to speak on it first. I just wanted to thought it, and again, you can tell me if I'm crazy.
Well, yeah, let me jump in before you do. Sorry, Jesse. So initially I was going to go with, I preferred I prefer personally to have a vision of what is going to be at the site. And I think saying that psychiatric beds, having that there, or supportive housing for mentally ill, having that in the plan and noting that it is just a concept, I think is a good idea, but because it shows what we desire to have there. But I hear what Dolores and Betty are saying, and I like Joe's suggestion for having it maybe somewhere else and having that slide maybe be more general. So I'm open to that. Jessica put her hand up again. So you wanted to say something, Jessica?
She's trying to mute. She can't unmute.
Oh, maybe you did that by accident.
No, sorry. I have a new setup and it took me a second. I was just going to say, I think there is a way to weave like as a suggestion or to like nod at this without saying this is what we're going to do or this, you know, like I think there is a way to walk this, like thread the needle on this by indicating that these are potential uses without saying specifically one thing, psychiatric beds specifically. And I would be comfortable with that.
So maybe we say it's 115 affordable supportive housing units with a portion for more dedicated toward.
You could say like potential use includes psychiatric or
fine.
supportive housing,
potential,
or just
right.
something that like indicates thought about this without saying this one thing alone.
I guess I want to get the message across that it's about for people who need more services than just the regular supportive housing. I'm trying to get that idea out there. So,
and Dolores wants to say one more thing.
Yeah, no, it's essentially, it's about the format and how we present. So our format and our presentation as is in the moment is giving an indication it's baked in, right, without allowing people to understand it's a concept. So if what you are doing exactly what you said, just saying this site can possibly produce 115 affordable supportive units, and then adding, because this is a specific and a very unique site, adding a different area. So it does look different from the slide, saying potential opportunity to, right? Something where we're saying that this is unique and we are considering that, so that people understand we recognize the need and we're identifying a site where that need could happen, but we don't know if we can put all those pieces together because we haven't consulted with the experts, the community, et cetera.
So what I think we should do is, I think we have kind of a consensus on how this should go, but I'm going to note that in the rewriting of it before the board meeting next week, we're going to send this around to a couple of people. Jessica, Dolores have spoken about this a lot. Figure out, Maria, if we can get the language tweaked in a way that makes sense. Does that make sense, guys? Okay.
And then Jesse wanted to say something.
Yes, Jesse, sorry.
Yeah, I actually, Dolores probably said most of it already. I just thought that's a good way of doing it. And I think going back to what you first just said, Joe, tell me if I'm wrong. I think we've done this with a couple of the other projects too, that we highlight the fact that you like you said, there's got to be a community process involved in this. And so that's one of the outstanding things, that I think that would also give people a good sense that this is not just like what Dolores is saying is the final complete slide. This is what it is, but there's still going to be, it has to go to land use committee. It's got to have a community process, like some type of wording in there that gives people an understanding that this is not the final decision, that it's that going forward there would be an engaged process. So that's the only thing I was going to say.
Yeah,
we actually like we've done that with other slides. We've highlighted where it would require rezoning, then it would require to go back to land use or something like that. So I don't know.
And it's interesting, in the actual narrative, we have a little section about Bayview. This is where we should make that a lot of those statements, so it's very clear, and then note on the slide what you just said. So it's really lays out.
Yeah.
All right. So I think in general we have consensus on the way to go on this one. Yes. Give me a nod if it's correct.
And I just want to say for everybody.
Yes. Okay.
I was going to say this is like we're in a much better spot with this building. If
oh my God,
Betty and Joe will remember, they were looking to turn in, they were going to take anything they could get for this building, and now the state is talking about putting in supportive and affordable, and we're talking about we're in a much better place collectively, I think. And this is
so for the committee to know, it was going to be the Steinway piano showroom. It was going to be an ad center. It was going to be the Women's Center by Warren Buffett and very wealthy people who had no idea what they were doing, who we spent 2.5 years with trying to figure something out. And they just couldn't put it together. And they came back to us and said, by the way, we have to rezone it, demolish part of it. After a whole process we went through, and then they came back for a third time, and then they walked away. So the fact that we're in a different spot, I think is fantastic at this point. JD?
It's important to emphasize that the Penn Station plan already has this in its sights. You might want to emphasize that. So it's very important that we respond with a proposal that can serve more of the community if we can work it out. I think you need to explain that when this comes up. We need to respond.
Yes. did everyone from the committee get to share their thoughts? Because we have a hand up. In the
I think JD
section.
dropped off for a second there. Is it okay?
JD, did you want to add more?
Oh, no. I'm done.
Sorry, I just joined, just got here late.
You have someone from the public with their hand raised.
So I don't have access to bring her over.
Go ahead.
I'm bringing her over. Oh, Maria.
Nellie gives me access.
Oh. I'll have to talk to her about that.
Oh, man.
It's Jesse's show, Maria. Jesse's show.
Oh, I apologize.
Judy, you're here with us. You have to unmute if you'd like to speak on this topic.
Yes, thank you. I think I misheard, but I would like to understand. Is this in any way, I mean, it's a great plan, and I think, I'd love to see it happen, although I don't understand the psychiatric part of it. Well, I guess I'll ask that question first. Is this for patients that are actually undergoing psychiatric treatment, or is it aftercare for people that have been in some kind of psychiatric care? That's my first question. But the second question is, I hope I misunderstood that this is part of a trade-off with the Empire State Plan. And I assume that they may be trying to woo communities away from opposing that, excuse my language, horrendous plan. So I would like to understand the intersection with the Empire State Plan. Thank you.
So I'll take the first piece. Judy, it is because we really want to bring in experienced social service providers. We don't know if it's aftercare, people who are entering the system who need more severe help and supervision and treatment than a regular supportive housing. So the idea is we're going to convene meetings in September, October with providers who do this all the time to help us understand what is the need. This comes out of a series of meetings and public meetings that the community board had with various social service providers last year. And it was noted that there was a number of folks who are in the homeless system who need more assistance than plain regular supportive housing. So that's our attempt to figure out how to start this idea. We don't really, it's not fleshed out.
So
the second thing is,
oh, I was just going to throw in there. It's something
you're on
that's
mute, Judy. Judy,
it's a proposed idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference.
Right.
So it is important to flesh that out and understand how exactly those beds would be used.
And we really felt it was helpful to have those providers who deal with this every day sitting in a discussion to help us understand so we can propose it better to the state. The second thing is, just yesterday, totally out of the blue, the Penn Station Working Group, you understand that today the state approved the horrible, as you put it, the horrific Penn Station plan, right? But yesterday, out of the blue, it was announced that Empire State Development Corporation would definitely be using this building would be used partially for supportive housing. We know nothing more than that whatsoever, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of it. But at least they're now talking about this as a housing building as opposed to a luxury building or a commercial building. And that's the step Jesse talked about. So again, we know nothing more than that. And it's not really a trade-off so much because we just found out about it yesterday. We don't know.
Okay, but it may be an attempt to buy community support. And I actually asked the other day at a rally if Community Board 4 had opposed the Empire State Plan because I hadn't heard anything. And I know Community Board 5 has been very active on it.
Yeah, I think as this gets to after the vote, our board, after that vote today, the community board is having discussions about whether or not to join Board 5 entirely. And that's how it was left. I have not been involved in that part of the discussion.
So Board 4 has not actually come out in opposition.
We go to our next person. No, they've wrote. Well, Jesse, you can speak to this because you've dealt with it more than I have. Jesse, you're on mute.
No, yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. No, I mean, in terms of the where we are compared to Board 5, I think we've taken it been a little more surgical in our approach to the different aspects of the plan. We certainly are in line with Board 5 in a number of components of what the plan, if going to go forward, what the plan would need to do. But in terms of the majority of the project, it is in Board 5. So I would defer to them on their opposition.
Next person is Ken Jockers.
Hi, folks. I'm Ken Jockers, and I'm the Executive Director of Hudson Guild. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm out on the street. Looking a little rough because I just walked to the Upper East Side from Chelsea while I've been listening, so maybe could look a little sweaty right now, so apologies. Just wanted to say that super exciting and thoughtful concept here. Really just terrific to hear, and totally understanding and appreciating the need to be more general in the thought process. I do have sort of a specific question about two spots. I know the building fairly well also. There is an extraordinary industrial kitchen on the first floor, and then two rooftop recreation spaces. And I'm curious if the concept has considered or would consider those in thinking about either the community space or, really more importantly, the need for that kind of kitchen space for on-site residential or community meals and food access, and the potential for sort of critical care food delivery options would be tremendous. And I heard, Joe, you say something about the flooding on the first floor, but I do wonder if that might be part of the conversation going forward for whatever happens there.
We, in general, in the broader concept plan, we did call out the kitchen as being part of the community facility, as part of the community center use, service center use. I think we can just put the words industrial kitchen because it's pool, gym. Just note that, because that really is an incredible resource for those folks who don't know, because of course it's served to jail. It is a top-notch industrial kitchen that could create meals for seniors, for families. It's an amazing facility that exists today.
Just add that,
yes,
and I'm glad you mentioned there, you could also add as a facility or a benefit is there is a rooftop that can be used, and you could leave it at that along with the list of the gym and the pool and stuff. There is an opportunity for rooftop uses.
Yeah, there are actually two rooftops.
Yeah, I'm gonna say there's more than one, right? There's more than
They're
one.
Awesome.
Dolores?
I just wanted to thank Ken for highlighting specifically the kitchen, because that also opens the door for certain types of providers to think about workforce development. And also, right. And also that is that opportunity for employment in that way is great for therapy. So all sorts of things. And I think when we get deeper into it, the more that we understand what those opportunities are, we may draw out the right providers to really bring this building alive and come up with a great concept.
So thank you, Ken. Any other members of the public wanting to speak on this Bayview concept thing? Okay, then we're going to move to the plan itself. And I'm assuming we're going to spend roughly half an hour on this, okay? So let's go share, hold on a second. Here we go. Here's the plan. So I have up the track changes version so we can see simple things like we update the community board members, very simple. We update the table of contents as things moved around. That's why this is all in red. And again, just a quick poll. Most members have been able to see this and look through it. Yes? Okay, excellent. So please stop me when I get to certain numbers, certain locations. The introduction really, of course, changes mayors and talks about the new mayor's plans. The numbers are the numbers, and they got revised because we revised the various slides and information in there. And now we just pick up information. So this talks about rezonings. We say what the rezonings were. This is the note about ensuring a range of income, affordability, range of incomes. And
no, I got this section sorry, should I wait?
No, please go ahead. That's what,
okay. Yeah. I'm like, don't trust that maybe I just am reading it too quickly, but something about that paragraph that begins in the West Side rezonings, it says it ends with all noted a range of incomes between 60 and 165 AMI. Isn't that what we want?
No, that's actually in those West Side rezoning points of agreements.
I guess I'm not sure when I finish that section, what I don't know how to say it, like what is different between what we want and what we have?
Huh.
Or I don't know, maybe I'll just say when you have a minute and you can reread that section with fresh eyes, if you could, just make sure that it says what you want it to say, and it's okay if I personally am missing it.
No, I really want your eyes to be fresh because I have reviewed this damn document so many times in the past like 3 months that I can miss something. So
Jessica, I didn't read it that way. I read it that it's explaining that what our concern was before it was rezoned was that it didn't integrate with enough of a range, and we were getting a lot of low and not the range. And so I read that differently, but I'm wondering
now we are getting the range
because that's what the rezoning brought us.
Right. Maybe just that juxtaposition needs to be made like a little clearer, that like we didn't get it, but now we have it. I can reread it with that.
Could you look at that and then give us some wordsmithing?
I'll try. But if that's, I was like questioning whether I understood. So just to make sure I do understand that we didn't have it, but then we rezoned and now we do, and we want to maintain that commitment.
We have the commitment in some places. It's been like MTA site, for example. There's the commitment, but it wasn't built. It's like that kind of stuff we have to sort of figure out.
Yeah.
But I think your point is right that anything you can bring for clarity, that's important here.
Yeah, Joe, I think for what Jessica is saying, looking at that and saying the West Side rezonings responded to the community concern. Now we have some in the points of agreement.
That's good.
An opportunity to expand to a more a wide range of income bands. So that basically starting out there saying that this action responded to what we articulate as a problem. We now have an opportunity because that the zoning changes happened.
So the West Side rezonings responded to the community concern. We achieved opportunities, and we continue to request the broad range of incomes. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think just making that, it's there. I see that it's there, but just making it like a little like firmer, clearer would help me. Hopefully others.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this page, anybody?
No, but can I just see the rest of that paragraph on the next page?
Yes, you can. There it is.
Oh.
So by the way, this is a little bit wonky because this is the non-clean version. And I think I want to also just open the clean version for a second. Sorry, folks. Okay. Because it showed that there's a graphic that shows in the clean version.
It's this little bar.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Thank you, Jessica. I'll put it on the screen in 1 second, folks. Okay. Here we are. So I'm going to stop the share the other page. 1 second. There we go. So it really felt in this version that we wanted to make sure that we showed in a visual way where the units have been produced, what's happened with these points of agreement. And you can see that 62% of the units are below 60% of AMI. I really felt that the pie chart was the simplest way to do it. Does that make sense to folks? Yeah. Okay, so now we'll go back to the marked up version of the plan. I'll stop the share and I'll toggle back and forth as we need to.
Jesse has his hand up.
Oh, Jesse.
Yeah. Again, I defer to all committee members. I was going to say, I think the pie chart does help. And I was actually going to suggest that maybe doing that somewhat for like, just because the number of times I've been asked most recently, and I don't know whether it's the administration change or what, is being asked, well, how many units does CB4 want? And how many, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like these broad strokes. And I know it's not that simple. You know, we can't just, you know, it's not just a number because everything is unique. But I was going to say, if there's some way of doing something like that as a visual for in that vein, not so much what's been produced. That's good for what's been produced, but looking forward, kind of a similar type of chart showing where we're headed or where we want to be headed or what our goal is and where we're at, I think would help all those folks asking that question.
So in other words, as we get further along on the various sections, do some sort of pie charts about, or at the end, here's what the plan is.
Joe, you have it. You have it in the chart. You actually have it. It's to just convert that final.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm saying.
And then that can be put in a spreadsheet, and all you do is it pops out a pie chart on that.
It actually is a spreadsheet for that chart to be in this, so I can go to that and sort of figure out how to link it. Got it.
Yeah, I would say at the beginning, almost like in the summary, is like this is this is broad strokes where we want to be and where we are and which, you know, are we going in the direction we want to go? And I think we are. That's what we're trying to say. But that I would just, as a suggestion, again, just because
it's a good idea.
No, it's a great idea, but since you have the data in a different form, it could be part of that entry, the beginning part to show that at the beginning, and then the appendix is the detail at the end.
Got it.
I wouldn't ask for any more data. You guys have done so much data on this already. That's use whatever you got.
So continuing on this section about what's been produced, we have the pie chart that shows it. And then we have a new section that we haven't had before in more detail is about the illegal demolition. And we all know, for those long-term committee members, that we've lost hundreds of units to illegal demolition in the district, ones that are actually preserved. So we have these recommendations that establish a special unit. We've had that already. These are all things that are not so new, but the thing here is about a cure. And in our committee, we talked about it a while ago to establish a cure that was very, very onerous. Because if you did it, you should pay big for it. The 28% for a cure for harassment is 20% of the floor area. And we're putting out there, as we did before in a prior version of the plan, 40% of permanent affordability if in fact you've done illegal demolition. Any thoughts about that or responses? Okay.
Yadira has her hand up.
Yadira, go ahead. Yeah. And by the way, everybody, tell me whose hand is up because I can't see all the people at the same time. Go ahead, Yadira.
So my, I guess, question or comment is about the 421A tax exemption. So I apologize if I'm jumping ahead. I'll shut it up. So there's a lot of confusion about the program expiring and whether or not people need to self-evict. Is there any way to get something solid on that for people or some information? Because I certainly have neighbors who are literally like, I have 2 more years and I have to leave. And I refer them to HCC, but we don't really have any solid information on that with 421A.
I think this is going to be a broader issue that we got going on. And and I knew you would bring that up. So maybe we can put that on one of our agendas for September, October, because we thought about inviting the 421A coalition really to get a fact sheet out there so it's clear, because people think it's one thing, but it's actually something else. So Jesse, please note that we've gone to that September, October. James.
And then Betty.
Yeah.
And everybody, please try to stay on the page we're on so we stay in place and keep moving through it. Yes, James.
Yeah, going back to the cure, I'm just wondering how we got to 40% over 28, because if it's a deterrent, you know, there's some sort of mathematical calculation that I would think a developer is doing. And I just wonder if that is a deterrent enough. Like, why not 50 or 60? Like, because there's a calculation that's taking place. They demolish the building and think that that's an advantage. Is 12% going to be enough to deter them? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. we did, James, in our prior discussion, we talked about 20% is the percentage in the zoning resolution now for harassment, right? So we wanted to do something more onerous. We may not get anywhere near this, but we tried to put a number that was less than 50, but more than 28. And honestly, we just kind of talked about it and came up with it a couple of months ago. That was it. So
from a negotiation standpoint, you know, maybe we start at 50 so that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, why not shoot for the moon? Because I think that moon shooting is this plan is all about reasonability. And if we say something, we're really not negotiating here. We're just putting something out there to say there should be a cure. We did a percentage because the other one has a percentage. The prior version had nothing in it. So we put a number for the first time. So I don't think we're like, I'm just wondering if you think 50 is shooting for the moon. It just seems like a larger number. And then if it goes down to 40, you know, because they're going to negotiate, they're going to be like, well, that's crazy. No matter what number we put out there, they're going to be like, well, that's unreasonable. The real issue is we have to be something that is very reasonable, because otherwise a penalty can be considered a constitutional taking of the land. And we have that same issue with the cure for harassment. So let's go to Betty next and then Dolores.
Oh, I just, whatever the number is, I'm okay on 40, but I think maybe we have to say that this would require a zoning text amendment, right?
It says this zoning mechanism should be modeled. So
okay, but I think you need to add a sentence that says to implement this, we would need to have a zoning text amendment.
You don't think it's enough to say to develop a zoning mechanism?
This is my opinion. You need to be specific that to.
We'll put in zoning text and then I got it, Betty.
That's all.
Dolores.
Responding to James, I understand James's point. Possibly one way to go ahead and do that without creating a potential legal issue or et cetera, perhaps it's at least 40%, maybe saying at least 40%. Recognizing that we are trying to disincentivize developers from, you know, or even if it's not at least, but just to state the point that we're looking to ensure that the calculation made is one that
is a sufficient deterrent.
Right. It's a high enough hurdle that it would be a deterrent.
I'm going to use the words either disincentivize or sufficient deterrent. I think those are very good. Jesse?
As you know, Joe, I think part of the problem here is, I think you know, I've always said this, right? That needs to have a backstop. We need to have a cure, and that would just solve so much of the problems that we've had. So I'm really glad this isn't being included. I just wanted to say also, you know, that half the problem with all of these is the agencies.
Half, 80%.
So I just would maybe think about adding something in there saying, and we would either expect or, you know, demand, request, whatever language, whatever word you want to use, that, you know, that that the agency would, you know, attempt to, you know, work as much as they can to make this happen. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, like not the actual rezoning, not the mechanism, but the after fact, like when the developer comes to the agency and says, okay, well, here's my plan for 40% or 30% or whatever, that we don't get caught up in term sheet, you know, bureaucratic, you know, political agenda of the mayor stuff, and that we would expect the agencies to, you know, try their best or maximize their ability to get this done.
I'm going to say to be enforced by appropriate agencies, but also you might be considering being in a new city if you think that's going to happen. So
to Jesse's point, Joe, I think that adding another sentence saying combined with other levers or other mechanisms that can be enforced or reinforced by the agencies with the ultimate goal of preserving our existable stock. So it's not being prescriptive, it's more at least calling out that this alone won't do it.
Consistent with the ultimate goal of preserving existing stock.
And
yeah, Jesse, that's what you're thinking.
Maybe the language diligent best efforts.
You are being an attorney, not yet. Sorry. that's for a negotiation down the road. We're in the plan here. So let's go to the new section, Chelsea NYCHA. Obviously, we talked about sites in Chelsea before in Chelsea NYCHA. This just sort of reiterates what happened with the working group and the whole going through it. That's all this is here. Next, 421A has not changed much at all. League of Hotel Enforcement is the same. You can see it's all in black. And then we wanted to make it clear that we're always open to accepting more density, particularly if the development is 100% affordable housing, not just because it's market rate housing. We want to clarify that. We've heard that a lot in committee and in the board in the past couple of months.
Isn't it supposed to be 100% permanently affordable?
It certainly is. It certainly is.
Oh, I didn't see the word permanently in there. Okay. I don't know. James and Betty, I see their hand up. I'm not sure if it's something new or.
Yeah,
all right, that was from before.
Oh.
Thank you, Maria. Keep watching the hands.
Joe, could you go back to something about hotels?
Yes.
What was that about?
Illegal hotel enforcement.
Oh, okay. This is
Airbnb stuff.
About the hotels. Would it be out of step for us to, or maybe it's there and I didn't notice?
No, Betty, let me short circuit.
Hotels could be converted into housing.
We actually decided to stay away from the hotel conversion thing until we got further along with this.
You mean it's not mentioned at all?
Not mentioned at all.
And why is that?
We'd like to maintain a consensus in the community to get the affordable housing plan approved. And there's varying degrees of appetite for hotel conversion to affordable housing or shelters.
Okay.
Big parts of the district.
I get it. I wasn't thinking of the word shelter. I was thinking of affordable housing, but if it's too controversial, let's not do it then.
Just want to note, if you live north of 30th Street, you might have a different opinion. That's all. So let's continue down and go to, we now added information about the inclusionary housing checklist. And I do want to know for the committee members, we got our first inclusionary housing checklist with Slaughterhouse, and we're going to be able to work with it, and we're going to be able to get, but they actually did say TBD a lot, to be determined. We have to have a conversation with them. No, determine it now and tell us, as opposed to in the future. So these sections are all the same, so there's not a lot happening. And then we have the whole sort of history section. None of this has changed, folks. Pages 9 or whatever the correct page number should be.
I had one thought. I don't think we need to do this, but when I was reading this, because it covers so much, such a broad time period, you know, it would be interesting to think about these investments in today's dollars, because, you know, not just from right now, inflation being real, I mean, in new ways, like we're experiencing that in new ways, but obviously there's some reference to like $25 million, I don't know, $25 million in 1984. That's much more like, you know, I don't know, $80 million, $70 million now.
That's $100 million today.
Well, yeah, actually, yeah. So anyway, just thinking about the size of the investment. I don't know that we necessarily want to go through that with all of these examples and where do you stop, but it was something that just, I think, helps say that if we could do this in 1964 or 1984, we could do it now.
Right. So again, this is all the history section, and we now are talking about the various strategies. And again, the numbers change because the overall, we've refined everything to make sure the methodologies are the same in every section. we start to repeat things. We noted, and this is for JD very specifically, that any buildings west of 11th Avenue should be slender to preserve light and air and Hudson River views. That came up at one of our committee meetings. We discussed this in terms of rezoning sections. The housing policy recommendations, again, not a lot of things changing until we go further down. Sorry. And then just this restates our table of contents. And sites in the HPD development pipeline. These things change color simply because we move them around into sections. But there is a new section, and that is Port Authority Bus Terminal Replacement Project. And if you remember, they're proposing to redevelop the terminal, plus build one residential building with some affordable units. And in our last meeting, we noted that we'd like them to build a second building that has mixed residential and commercial and have affordable units in it. The illegal demolition section, again, this is updated. It was moved around, so that's why it shows as red. This is all from the prior version back in 2019. Chelsea NYCHA, more detail on that. And then we note that the RFP was awarded to Related and Essence Development for the Chelsea NYCHA. And then all the proposed zoning and text amendments that we've gone through. And again, notes what it is. We clarified. Betty was fantastic to help this West Chelsea thing get fixed. We went back and forth and sideways to get it to make sense. And I think at this point, it does read to make sense. I do note Betty did send me an email that there's one slide 104, that will come out of the presentation. That was about conversion of the refrigeration buildings down on 17th Street that I thought was in the prior one. It was not. So we're taking it out. That's going to get to Chelsea Land Use to discuss if that's something that you folks want to think about as promoting for residential use. And we then have this whole summary. So I think what's interesting to look at for us is now the numbers. So all of our production plus all of our preservation plus all of our new planning would yield roughly 14,509 units. Again, the majority of which I will note are below 60% of AMI, which are these numbers here. We did take the opportunity to make sure the very large sites that we propose to rezone that are owned by the state or that are controlled by an agency that has they would have a range of units in them for moderate middle income. Then we have the map, of course. And this is pretty much here the same conclusion as we had before. And then appendices that list the AMI bands, what it means, the methodology, the current 2022 income bands and rents, a whole glossary of different types of programs, the review process that we have spent here, and the different meetings we've had. So for example, here we have already talked about this 3 times this year. This is our fourth. And then we list all the participants. So questions or thoughts now, I'll take this down from the committee members. Dolores.
Bravo. When we first published it, it was made very clear to the full board. This is a living, breathing document. It's going to change. It's going to be very different when projects get actually done. What this captures, though, is the spirit of what this community is looking for. It also, most importantly, demonstrates that this committee is doing its homework to see what can be done here within our community to not only provide for a broad range of income so that we maintain that mix within our community, but also solving some of those problems, the social problems as well. So I don't think that this should be nitpicked at all. I think that we should bring this to the full board, get it out there, recognizing it's a living, breathing document, and will be updated continuously as we know different things about each of the specific projects and or changes to zoning.
I also want to note for the members and the new ones especially, we've only added 2 new sites here. That's the Intrepid parking lot on West 45th to West 46th Streets, and the Port Authority, because that was not part of anything, you know, in prior years. Other thoughts I want to go around the room. Roberta?
I really appreciate this document. I think it ultimately captures what we've heard from these meetings. I think it represents a pretty reasonable compromise from different ideas that have been discussed at the meetings. I don't have any like very narrow or specific items. I'm still kind of making sure that I haven't forgotten anything. I really appreciate it.
Great. Jessica?
Thanks. Yeah, similarly, I think it's a tremendous resource for the board and for the community. As I mentioned, I have a few small nits that I'll send over. And I do think, you know, Betty referenced it in the discussion about Bayview, but, you know, I know that Chelsea Land Use would be eager for the opportunity to reflect on this document, to align with what's here in the document. And I imagine Hell's Kitchen Land Use as well. So I'd love to think about how we do that. And obviously we can do that in the September meeting or at the right time, but really make sure that that committee sees this as also informing their work.
So it's interesting. Jeffrey and I have had a conversation the last couple of days back and forth about that. And yesterday we sort of agreed that this document gets settled and finished, and then let's refer that out to those committees just to discuss as they wish or talk about, you know, in general. Today, though, his alternate suggestion was that we don't adopt it, that we adopt it tonight, but not send it to the full board, and we wait until it goes to the land use committees. My response is, I think our committee has been working with this since 2015. We should adopt it tonight, send it to the full board, but then know that it's a living document. And as we go through, like the Bayview discussion told us tonight, pull back a little bit and then let's bring something through. I just feel very comfortable with the idea that the members of this committee have struggled back and forth and really delved deeply into it to understand it. So I don't want to pull it apart before we update it. It hasn't been updated since 2019, and that's because of COVID, you know, obviously.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, I don't want to, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Jess, go ahead.
Oh, just, I don't feel strongly. I think that, but I do think that the opportunity, I wouldn't expect that Clue would tear it apart at a minimum, but I do think the ability for them to see this as something that does, as I said, aligns with their agenda and also becomes aligned, like an active process of alignment.
Right.
And I do think generating that kind of buy-in at the committee level before something goes to the board is often is a good process. So I know they spent a lot of time on that also. So I ascribe to it
100%. Here's my concern. The mayor's issued his housing blueprint. Our plan is from 2019. We have to get something out there. And as long as we're willing to spend the time on it, and certainly this committee has, I think we put it out there and then let the committees engage with it and go back and forth about it. That's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Dolores, and then we're going to go to Betty.
So, Jessica, I was actually surprised that you think it should go to land use before it's adopted by the full board. In previous years, this committee's done the work. The whole board has had an opportunity to weigh in it at full board. And as projects became relevant, et cetera,
they went to land use.
Land use would do that. And land use has always been informed by it. I share the same concern of Joe. The work that we've done here is around those housing concerns. Not all of these sites will have to have a land use mechanism in order for them to come online. And I think that getting into the weeds before actually just saying, what is our vision? What are the possible sites where things could happen? We could get a lot of folks that are bringing in things that are bringing the cart well before the horse. And so that's where I have a concern about that. I do think it's always informed land use because it is a document that land use is actually bringing into the conversation when these projects actually start to come online. Just my thought.
Betty?
Yeah, that's very, very pertinent to some concern I have too, is that there's lots of projects that have had a lot of discussion, Harbor View, you know, had them for years and talking back and forth and what should be the proposal. But then there's some projects that have specific building heights, new FARs and so on. And I feel concerned about the projects that have not been discussed in Chelsea land use. I guess I'll let Clinton Hell's Kitchen deal with their issues. But so I personally would like to, maybe we shouldn't do it now, but those projects that have very, very specific zoning, FARs and so on, that were never discussed in Chelsea land use, it would be good to do that in Chelsea land use, maybe before the full board, but I know you want to be in a big rush to get it to the full board. So one thing is—
honestly, I'm not in a big rush, but nothing in the plan is new in Chelsea, except for Chelsea NYCHA. That's the only new thing.
Well, we can go through that offline, but
okay. Yeah, nothing new.
I think, you know, it's been many years since it's gone. Maybe you've thought about it and digested it, but anyway, I mean, I personally would think you could say to be determined on some of the, you know, what the new zone will be, or the height or something like that. But maybe a compromise is that it does go to the full board and it's called like final draft or something like that. I don't know. And then it goes to the two land use committees. But anyway, I've spoken my piece on that.
Go to JD and then Leslie.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I keep losing connection. So if it goes off, it goes off. I am very reluctant for the Land Use Committee of Hell's Kitchen to interfere with another committee's work. As Jesse knows, I don't think the board functions well when multiple committees are taking up the same thing. Certainly, if it comes to rezoning something, yes, we should take it up. But as far as I know from this plan, there's really not a lot that affects the Clinton Special District. So Chelsea has a different take. I understand that. One quick question, Joe, the plan is there's not enough detail in the plan. I think you need more detail. I'm just kidding about that. It's a terrific job. I want to ask. Just wanted to make sure if everybody's listening. I want to ask one thing, Joe. Maria, is it possible we have a city planning hearing coming up Monday? Would it be possible to have two numbers? One, the affordable housing that has been produced by the board since 2009, that pie chart, the number broken down, and secondly, the proposed number, ballpark figure. That would be very useful for the city planning committee meeting.
Our city planning
is that
commission
possible?
Meeting is on Wednesday. So for Wednesday, yes. Also,
okay, thanks.
Yeah. Leslie?
Right, Wednesday.
Thoughts?
Yeah, Joe, it's a great document. The only concern I have, I kind of raised at one of our previous meetings, which is the 165% AMI, the high end. I think it's something we need to take a look at.
No, we changed that, Leslie. We changed the percentages. Yeah. After our last meeting, I think we reduced it from 20 to 10 and redistributed the others down. Yeah.
I couldn't see it because I'm looking at
it was not in the narrative. It's in the all the slides now. It brings it down to that. It's consistent across the board.
Okay. Great document.
I first I want to say I really enjoyed reading this document, believe it or not. And thank you for everyone's hard work. This was really well put together. And I am personally excited to see that there's more of a kind of spotlight being shed on inclusionary housing. So thank you for putting that together. I do have one idea, and I don't know if it can be put into this document. I know that inclusionary housing is supposed to promote growing families and affordability and things like that. I realize that a lot of the developers, they create a lot of studios and one bedrooms. Is there any way to recommend that the developers or property owners at some point introduce some sort of a apartment transfer policy for life-changing events in an effort to help family, like someone like myself? I'm in a studio apartment, I had a baby, and their recommendation has always been apply for a new building, move to the Bronx, move somewhere else. But why not give me an opportunity if a larger unit opens up within my building to stay within the community that I love so much? So I was actually able to negotiate that with management, but I'm curious if maybe it was something we could recommend to future developers or owners.
So we have two things. We always recommend 50% 2 bedrooms to create more family units. But I think this idea of an internal transfer policy is another thing we should put on our agenda for September, October, or October, November, start talking about it. Because we have to develop it, think it through. And then as we amend the plan, we include these kinds of things as issues. Like we put in the thing about inclusionary, all the same finishes and everything should be equal, that kind of stuff. So keep up coming up with ideas because we have to develop them. Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but thank you.
No.
I'm excited to see that you guys are all suggesting the equal finishes. So that's definitely a big start. Thank you.
Travis, then Roberta.
I just wanted to say that I 100% support Yadira's suggestion regarding that life-changing event scenario, because one of the things we need to keep pushing is the fact that we have people within our community that have been strong members of the community that we don't want to lose our key contributors to help this community thrive. And, I've pointed this out to you before, Joe, if we have social workers or teachers in this community that are barely affording to live here and they have a child and they're forced to leave, that greatly alters our community. So I really want to push that one along. Aside from that, everything else in the package is great. I commend everyone for the hard work.
Thank you. Roberta and then Sabrina.
One item that I think is probably worth bringing into this document, it might be on page 14 in the rezoning, balancing zoning, density, height, and affordable housing, is recognizing that we have a supply problem. We have record low vacancy rates. We have a fundamental shortage of affordable housing, whether that be subsidized affordable housing, but also naturally occurring or market rate housing that is affordable to those who are moderate and middle income, and the challenges that supply ultimately play.
Can you give us a very short, pithy sentence or two we can drop in? That would be helpful.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm going to write down page 14, Roberta. That's my only clue on that. Let's go to Sabrina.
I don't have further comments. I think we all said about it. I actually did Roberta's ideas about including the biggest issue, which I think it is a supply problem. So, yeah.
So we haven't heard from Paul or Pete. Paul?
Sorry, I was late to the meeting, but from what I've heard, it's a great, wonderful, sprawling document. I'm happy to have anything to do with it, Joe. It really is quite an astonishing thing. I wanted to touch base just briefly on what I heard a little shred about at the very beginning, talking about beds for folks with mental problems. Just a personal note, it doesn't really have to do with what you're asking, Joe, but when it starts happening on your block. The other day, I had the conversation with the 911 operator. I hope I'm not calling the wrong number. Is this still an emergency, or do I just call 311, or what? A guy I thought he was dead on my sidewalk. Then he rolled.
That's a 911, Paul.
A cop came up and maybe gave him a cup of coffee and went away. He was sleeping on the sidewalk 3 hours later. I'm saying you all have seen it, I know. but it just brought it home that what we sometimes talk about is what a crazy idea. Could we even ask for this? Oh, it's so needed. Anyway, thanks. That's about it.
Pete Diaz, then James. We'll finish up.
Thank you for the great work done on this living document. And I'm also glad that you've included the demolition clause regarding the loss of units due to the demolition. Again, it's a great document and I'm all for it.
James, you have the last word on this tonight.
Great work. Call the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, Aurora. Did we lose her?
No, I'm here. I was going to raise my hand after James went. No, I was just going over the document as we were speaking too. And I love the idea that we're calling it a living document because it just means that it keeps on going, right? Like we can make amendments to it. And while there's concreteness to it, there is opportunities for it to grow and to change as the needs grow and change, right?
Yes.
So that's again, I'm here to listen. I'm going to observe all your hard work all this time and just take it all in and then make observations hopefully the next time.
Thank you very much. So I think, Jesse, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think just because we've heard so much from it is that I think maybe not within the document itself, because I don't think that's necessary because things will always change, but maybe when we bring it to full board, there's maybe a cover sheet, a cover letter, which kind of lays out an idea of what September and October would be for land use committees, or you know what I'm saying?
So saying, here's what we're doing now, some quick highlights, any highlights of major changes. This is not that many, right?
Yeah.
And then here's the going forward. We want to have community meetings about Bayview and provider meetings. We want to have discussions with the land use committees, take this up and have discussions in general to refresh and whatever, sort of lay it out. September and October. Okay.
Yeah, you're not being prescriptive to the committee themselves, but saying that this is, your committee, this committee is acknowledging that there's more input to be taken in, but that it's timely that you guys have always done a memo, like the last one, you did a memo that sort of highlighted the changes. You would do something similar, I'm assuming, for this one, but I think maybe adding a couple lines about that, and like you highlighted some of the projects already. So I just think that might help the rest of the board understand that and give a little more, direction for
also, maybe we need to do a quick 3-sentence paragraph saying we started this in 2015, amended it so many times, because new members haven't been here to go through all that process, right?
Yes. Can I jump in ahead of Travis? I have a quick question for you, Joe or Jesse.
Travis, put your hand down. I think you're not. There you go.
Oh, you already went, Travis?
Yes, he did.
Oh, by the way, can I just say I love Triple HS because we have 4 social workers sitting here right now. Jesse, I included you in that.
Just want to note, one non-trained social worker from every single day.
Okay, 5. Joe, I'm just a little confused. When you guys were talking about it going, the affordable housing plan going to land use, it would be both land use committee meetings together?
No.
I mean, I didn't say it right, but you know what I meant.
The general idea is that we refer this out of committee tonight, we vote on it, we send it to full board, and then this cover letter is attached that also speaks to, we would ask that the land use committees separately review the plan, any ideas, thoughts, whatever with it. And we talk about Bayview and a few things like that, Jesse, about the things that are going to come up. Is that better, Maria?
Yeah, that's clear for me. JD, you were going to say something?
I really don't think, I don't think one committee should start telling another committee what they're supposed to do. This is kind of odd to me. I certainly don't think that it would be useful to review this entire plan at a land use committee meeting.
I think the land use
specific things, yes, maybe so, but
right. I think the land use committees can choose to review something, a portion of it, or something that makes sense. Not every. I don't think the land use committee should review every single housing site. That makes no sense.
But Perhaps, Joe, the statement is simply,
Right.
This is a resource for the whole board, and in particular where land use actions may be taken, guidance for our land use committee, and they should, have conversations where applicable about some of the specific sites. It's not directing, but it's more saying, it's explaining to the entire community that it is going to be informing our land use when there are sites that are in the particular areas. That's one way.
Jessica, then Betty.
Yeah, I think that it's saying that this is a resource for a statement that says this is a resource for the board and to create alignment and direction to guide the board, kind of like N- in particular, our land use committees, or something that indicates that that's clearly the area that's most relevant. But, you spoke about water resiliency, and so maybe other committees will want to weigh in on that. I mean, there certainly are other areas that may ultimately impact and then be brought in, but I think we want overall alignment. And yes. I would just also, I'm totally fine with this. I just want to clarify that I think one of the reasons that I think it would have been good to bring to Clue is less about them, is really about buy-in and engagement. Yep. And that I think that too often we come to our committees with like, well, the board has signed off on this. Well, we're the board. And also like, how does that become internalized? And how do we empower our committee members to like really understand what we're guided by and like really internalize that? And many people, so many of us, you all have been doing this a really long time, but not everyone on our committees has. And so that was the motivation for me for saying it should go there. I'm again fine where we ended up, but it wasn't about people breaking it down necessarily. It was about really engaging with the material and owning it in the way that I think we want the board, like committees to do.
I have a thought for Jesse and for the committee. We do land use trainings for new board members coming on. Maybe we should do a separate like affordable housing training using the plan as a general guide and explaining why we do things or why we have things in there so people can get oriented. Just like the two new members today spent time going through it. But if we had a meeting and a discussion about it, that might help people. Is that like the angle, Jessica, right? Like,
no, that's a great idea. Listen, we were trying to, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, I think that would be great.
That was a yes.
Oh yeah, okay. Laura was jumping up and down with that. Oh, I'm not on screen, sorry.
Yes, Betty.
Oh yeah, I'm sort of in the same zone as Jessica. And I was thinking there are a number of new members to Chelsea Land Use who don't know much of anything of these projects. And I look at it could be very educational, and that we could focus on the Chelsea projects. And no way, I don't know if JD is still on this, we would never want to make a recommendation for just Hell's Kitchen Clinton. We would want to be looking at and understanding what's going on for the Chelsea projects, but that we could do that, and we could have some bigger meeting on the affordable.
I think both are good. I think Jessica's onto something. The point of it is there's lots of new members that have not internalized all this information over all these meetings we've had. James, last thing on this, and then we'll take a motion to bring it to full board. James?
Yeah, I think this is consistent with kind of what JD and Jessica are saying. Something along the lines of, we certainly aren't going to tell the other committees what their job is, but at the same time, we do want to highlight that this is collaborative, cooperative, and a community statement of our housing policy, and that when the time comes, land use should certainly weigh in as appropriate.
Or be the lead.
Yeah.
Depends, right. Dolores, is there a motion from you?
There will be in a second, but okay. I just wanted to clarify. The reason why we're having this whole debate is because I think the conversation, Joe, that you had with Jeffrey was where Jeffrey wanted this to not be posted, not be approved until it's gone to land uses.
Right.
Before it goes to the full board. So I just wanted to point out, all the points that Jessica and Betty and everyone's making, we have to do that. We have to have the buy-in. but we're updating a document that has already been living and breathing on the board. And that's always been coming out of housing. So let's do that and then do that extra work where the rest of the committees are able to use the document. I am just thinking it makes no sense to hold up the update to this work before it's gone deeply into each committee when some of these projects may not even be ready to come off the ground. We're just up to it. So my motion is that we do take this out of committee after months of work of wordsmithing and also the way it's presented, to bring this to full board for a vote to update the plan that we already have.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. I see it. Yeah, everyone came on for a second. Perfect. Okay, and Pete, are you in favor, Pete? Yes, Pete's hand is up. Oh, so it's unanimous. Perfect. Thanks. By the way, thanks everybody very much for this incredible amount of time we spent on it. But I want to give a special thank you to Savannah Wu from Clinton Housing and Bill Kelly now, who have gotten into the numbers and the specifics and the methodology. And Jessica, give us your page numbers, because I will tell you, those two people are pretty much blind at this point from being able to see the detail on this. All right. So now remember, we have to get this done and out. The board meeting is next Wednesday. So really it's Monday. It's Friday and Monday we have to get this thing out. Jesse, that works for you, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jesse's saying that because he knows he's waiting for other things from me.
No, he's not.
From me, from Clue is.
Okay.
No, the nice thing about this is, like we've all said, that this has been, it's on our webpage. It's been there for quite a long time. I assume every board member has read every page of it, backwards and forwards 3 times over. So, it's not anything particularly super, new and groundbreaking. So it should.
I just want the webpage updated so something doesn't say will be done in early 2019, and it's like gone kind of thing.
I mean, listen, we're one of the few boards that have such a document, so I think we're already miles ahead in terms of the planning for our neighborhood and our community. So I think you guys should all feel proud of yourselves for all the work that's been put into.
Great. Let's move on to our last item, which is a letter to HPD about staffing. I'll put that up on the screen after I get it in the right spot and download it. There we go. Okay. Roberta, you put this together. Why don't you lead this through?
Sure. I assume you'd like a summary of the letter, not.
Yeah, a summary, right?
Yeah. So this letter relates to the staffing shortage at HPD. Currently, HPD has the capacity to hire more people to fulfill the agency's function and mission. They've been thus far unable to do so. That has created a number of issues within this community. Notably, at a recent board meeting, I think last month, there was an issue raised by Park Clinton Co-op. The shortage of project managers in the development division meant that they were unable to receive a project manager to work on their loan. The letter notes the shortage of folks, particularly in the development office. In addition to the loan and financing piece, there's also a note specifically about the pipeline for new affordable housing, because when you do not have the development staff, the pipeline for new affordable housing, you cannot create that new housing. Bad for supply. It also notes the lack of hiring on the inspector side and how that limits the ability to enforce housing code violations, which are another piece of this committee's priority, being able to enforce against violations. And while there is no very specific solution, it does refer to a industry group's recommendations to creatively and swiftly remedy this shortage so that HPD is able to provide the services that it is supposed to this community.
I mean, the number of the 140 vacancies in the inspectors alone, that's a 30% vacancy for people who inspect to make sure things are safe and healthy. It's just a shocking number. Roberta, thank you very much. The letter's clear. There are a few little edits and it was really put together very well. Any thoughts or questions about the letter in concept, let alone the details? Yes, starting with Dolores.
Bravo, Roberta. Nice job. I think that it's simple. It's to the point. It's very helpful. My only concern is the last paragraph is, we're urging swift action. As we all know, with the Great Resignation, there's a ton of other issues which are really creating problems for people hiring. Not that we want to make an excuse, but I'm wondering if perhaps it's more of an ask to understand, what measures they're taking, et cetera, instead of charging them to do that. Because again, there may be some things we don't know about why they can't get these jobs online. Just a thought.
I'll give you an example, Dolores. I learned this week by total chance. In one of my projects, we have a project manager who has to relocate back to Missouri with his family for some reason. I've never seen this. HPD is allowing the project manager to continue to work remotely through the end of the year because they're that badly staffed. That's a good way to fix things. If you can't get someone for the job here, at least keep someone on who's doing the job and knows how to do it. So maybe we do ask them for what strategies they're trying to figure out to make this work. JD, you're next.
Yeah, great job, Roberta. Really excellent letter. The specifics are very important. But Joe, could you put the letter up because I can only see the last part of it. I'd like to see the beginning. But Roberta, excellent job.
So we do note the labor trend specifically in the that second paragraph there.
Next up is Betty.
Yeah, thank you, Roberta. Fantastic letter. Two thoughts. Can we write one like this to DOB? Aren't they the people who, like, when the owner rips off the roof and so the building is going to collapse? Isn't it DOB who has to go out and,
yes,
and enforce that? So I would like that. And I don't know if you want to say anything about how the city's forcing people to come in person to their
I think we should stay away from that issue because that's,
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, great job.
But it is mentioned in the strategies related from the New York Housing Conference. They recommend a bunch of strategies. In
other words, it's incorporated by reference, but instead of putting it out there, I think it's better to stay away from it. Sabrina, followed by James.
Well, this is just a comment. You were mentioning anecdotally about this employer who is allowed to work remotely. Well, the issue is that it's coming from the direction from the mayor. So it's very complicated. So it's not about the agency wanting to do this. It's because what's happened in HPD is happened across all agencies. I mean, I work for the city, so I can tell you for a fact that it's not just exclusive to them. But the issue is it's for the mayor. It's the mayor who refuses to give any hybrid options. And then every day we continue to lose more city workers. And big reason it's that. So I think, this is just, it's the mayor. He's the one who doesn't want to.
But I just want to note that the anecdote that I gave, it was someone who was permanently relocating out of state. And normally you cannot maintain a city employee. So that's a very odd thing.
Well, that's even more extreme, but
But that was creative, figuring out how to at least make it work in the meantime.
It is creative, but it's interesting that they can have those exceptions, where those are very rarely. And the problem is right now is that they're not allowing anybody to do hybrid work. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that the world changed, and we're going to continue to lose more and more folks who work for the government, because the city government, because they don't want to be always in the office. Like I said, obviously I'll be I'm not present eligible for this letter because I work for the OMB, but I can tell you that, you know, one of the biggest issues is people want remote work. And it's the mayor who decides that, essentially.
And we can't change him right now, but we can certainly hit around the edges.
Right. So that's my point. Like, so I'm just putting it out there. If this is important to you, put in your issues.
James.
This is a great letter. Compliments to Roberta. I have one question and then one, you know, hopefully pretty non-controversial change. The question is, to what extent is the budget committed in advance? In other words, when you have a 30% shortage in filled positions, where does that money go? Like, or is the money programmed for their actual employment level?
The budget funds the 470 positions, and if they're not filled, that money stays there until, if it is not used after a certain time, it is recaptured. But that money is there today. It's not like they're not hiring, and especially with HPD, it's not like they're not hiring because there's no money. They have hundreds of unfilled funded positions.
So my only friendly amendment, and it's, you know, you may not want to put it in there, and that if not, that's fine. Page 2, line 11, it just says, consider these and other creative solutions to improving speed and overall success in hiring and retaining staff. Thought it might be a good idea to throw in hiring, training and retaining staff. That way, you know, it's not just bodies. Like, we want to make sure that these are, you know, highly qualified people.
I think that's a fine change. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last comment is, I totally agree with Betty. We just need to copy this letter, replace HPD with DOB, and send the exact same letter.
We're not going to do it tonight. We can take that up in September.
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand so I can see a hand. And Pete, say yes.
Put your hand.
Oh, okay, great.
See, Roberta wrote a great letter that was so easy for us to get through. Great job.
I think Roberta should write every letter.
My vote is
non-controversial issue.
So
Sabrina was present, not eligible.
Yes, I got that.
All right, thank you.
So just want to note one thing now. Remember, our agenda was going to be full tonight with an affordable housing plan, inclusionary housing plan for 495 11th Avenue, Slaughterhouse. That's put over to September when they're available. Jesse's seeking to get an extension for our comment period. People should, however, though, now look at what they submitted so far. It's the first time we're seeing on our new inclusionary housing checklist all the information, and it's really helped, especially for me, to be able to say, oh, this is here, this is missing, what are the issues? So I'm going to ask Jesse to set up a briefing with that developer sometime in August, just to have a conversation to make sure they understand they need to fill everything in, because their questions are going to be asked. The second thing is, on Tuesday, July 26th, we have a special community meeting, encouraging all the members of this committee to attend. And that is about the 4 new shelters that over, what was it, a 3-week period, Jesse, that we learned roughly? Like a 4-week period, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, one of them we sort of knew was coming down the pike, and you know.
But it was so frozen for the longest time.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. The opening dates were quite. They're all happening at once, basically. Between now and September, supposedly, we're getting 4 new shelters, all opening all at the same time.
I just want Jesse to. Jesse's joke was, we're fine as long as it's not Friday at 3 o'clock when the next shelter will be informed. We were informed at 3 p.m. on a Friday afternoon about a 230 bed shelter opening. And
no,
they said,
already, let's be clear, opened.
Opened, yeah. Like, first we got pictures of mattresses being brought in, and then we got a letter from
Friday afternoon. It's Friday afternoon when they told us.
So
that'll be next door to me.
Right.
Well, but I think it's also important to note that they're all approximately within 10 blocks of each other. Yep. So, and 2 are on the same block. Right. So again, it's not about having an issue with of creating opportunities for housing, folks that have housing issues. It's about the concentration that we are seeing up in the Hell's Kitchen area, that without that notification, there's not opportunities to bring all the agencies together in order to mitigate some potential problems that could happen. And that's really the issue.
So just so people hear, the first one's at 440 West 41st, which we've heard about before, but no details. And now we actually got some briefing on that. That's on the corner of Dyer Avenue. Travel Inn, just west of 10th Avenue and West 42nd. The Skyline, which was a nightmare during the COVID issues with homeless shelters at on 10th and 49th. And then right behind that, 521 West 49th, another shelter. And two are permanent, two are very temporary. I think the biggest issue we have here is that when we're on a Zoom meeting with the first Deputy Commissioner of DHS, Molly Park, and she is apologizing profusely for this happening again. I have to say, you have to stop apologizing and not doing this and working with us, because the issue we have here is concentration. It is more than curious that all of our shelters are located between 30th and 56th Streets, from 8th Avenue to somewhere between 10th and 11th. I suggested and made it very clear the board will not oppose these kind of shelters, but they need to be distributed somewhere below 30th Street or in Chelsea or the West Village, because that's very much in areas that you don't have the social service concentration. It's wrong for the clients and it's wrong for the neighborhood. They agreed that it did not make any sense to have one shelter behind another. I mean, because who does that? So Roberta, just your thoughts on this. It's one of these moments where like my hands were thrown up in the air 3 Fridays in a row.
Yeah, I think it's it puts people who would ultimately be supportive of these between a rock and a hard place. It's very frustrating. Has the board, this committee, or anyone else looked at alternative or proposed sites? I know that is a third rail.
Well, let me tell you the ideas. We're going to go to this meeting with a map of all the shelters again and the social service things, but I'm also going to ask to have produced a map of all of the hotels that are south of 30th Street, because we know the budget hotels are being used for shelters, right? Why would you only work with sleazy owners and bad operators? The very operator that was the worst Acacia for Skyline is back at the Skyline after Jesse was told they would never reopen the Skyline and never have Acacia at the Skyline. I mean, right, and you're right. You want to support, but how do you support the same mistakes over and over? That's one of the problems we have here. Anyway, so we're gonna have a full meeting on Monday night. We expect a large community participation. Please, members of the community, come. You'll have there'll be DHS, and also the providers will be there. 2 of the 4 providers, right, Jesse?
Well, yeah. I mean, Acacia is doing both the temporary hotels. So out of the 4, you'll have actually 3 of the providers. I mean, Acacia does 2 of them, and then Homes for the Homeless is doing the other.
Yeah, there was a scheduling conflict with West Hab, who's running 440. They'll come in September. But again, we felt it was important not to ignore the fact that this is happening, get it out there before the vacations and the holiday really starts.
Joe, this is on Tuesday, correct? Not Monday.
Tuesday,
No.
yes.
Okay. Monday is the social, the community board.
Tuesday, July.
Tuesday
26th. JD?
Yeah, Joe, I'm still concerned or unclear about the format for this presentation. Are they just going to come and say, here it is, this is what we've done? Do we respond? Do we ask questions? How does it work? Is it a committee?
So we're gonna hear from DHS and the providers. We're making it clear. We don't want to hear a chapter and verse, just specifically each location, what it is.
Making it clear, Joe. Joe, I'm sorry. Is it a committee meeting that you and Maria are running, or is it a forum for the community? What exactly?
It is a forum for the community through the community board. But we are encouraging board members to attend, to be able to ask questions, to be able to speak about it, and then we will go to the public for them to weigh in on these issues.
Joe, do we know which ones are the permanent shelters?
Yes, the 521 West 49th, that's 81 beds, and 440 West 41st, 100 beds. Those are the permanent shelters. We asked for a family shelter, and all of a sudden we got 2. And my response was, one could be in another part of our district, correct? So we have them fair share and located throughout the district. Jesse, is that an accurate representation of the format of the meeting?
Yeah, yes, it's not a committee meeting, to be clear. It's a community meeting hosted, sponsored by the committee. So it doesn't require quorum. I think what we normally have always do is have the co-chairs kind of moderate the conversation. There's presenters by presentations by the providers or the agency, I think Joe and Maria like to defer to committee members first in terms of questions or concerns, but then it's open to the public for Q&A and questions and answers. And as we all know, this is the beginning of the conversation.
and Jesse and I decided not to do a special meeting. We were concerned about getting your quorum, asking people to come to 2 meetings during a month, but we felt it could not wait until the fall to get this information out there and get discussed. We've had a good meeting tonight, and we do not have a meeting in August. So we can actually say, we are going to see each other hopefully on Monday night for the social event in person, which is interesting. We'll see how tall everybody is and how short everybody is. Folks, we've all seen each other maybe once in a year and a half or 2 years. So is there a motion to adjourn for this evening?
Motion to adjourn?
A lot of them in a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you so much for your work tonight, guys. Thanks.
I look forward to seeing you on Monday.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Hey, everybody.